First, a disclaimer: what financial video is not good without a disclaimer? I am not a registered financial advisor. You can make a big mistake with all these things we're going to talk about here, or you can make a life-changing positive mistake. It's up to you, not me. Check everything out with a registered advisor, and any of my advice is just advice talking to a camera. I don't know your circumstances, so I cannot be expected to know how to guide you at this level. When we're together in a forum where we are aware of each other's situations, we can talk more openly and take more direct guidance. But for right here, I don't know who you are and I don't know your situation. So talk everything over with a financial advisor. And this is just advice in general, but not to be taken by any person without proper guidance. But after that, let's get on with the podcast. Well, today is the 4th of July in America, or as I like to call it, Happy Treason Day, you ungrateful colonials. And we've been celebrating and been down at the parade and everything's fantastic. It really got to me today because I had a wonderful interview lined up for you guys today with somebody who's a real leader in the field and in many different ways. I'm not going to tell you too much about them because I have to remain anonymous, and that is because of freedom. Unfortunately, the person that was meant to be on today is being investigated by their chiropractic board for spurious claims, and they couldn't afford to have further spotlight put on them at this time. And it really stood out to me during the 4th of July freedom that we aren't free unless we are financially free. And I think that's one of the things that we have to really pay attention to. And therefore it's the topic of discussion today, being financially free. And it's an exciting topic because everyone wants to be financially free. And it's one that I've been blessed with for quite a while. And in fact, I didn't work for 2 years. And before that, I only worked 3 days a week at the most, and travelled all over the world doing my hobbies that I wanted to do, down to financial freedom and using the principles that we're going to talk about today. So first of all, what is financially free? And why is it important? Well, the person who's going to interview today, who I still hope to interview, and they are such a great person, they didn't want to put heat on me without knowing that I don't care because I'm financially free, so nobody can really hurt me professionally. And that gives me the freedom to talk about things like vaccines and various other things that other people can't talk about because they don't have that freedom. But financially free is a thing where it affects your whole clinic life as well. Many times in clinic, if we're like in the early days for me, I was worried about money. We might try and get that sale or that patient in, and that comes across to the patient.
Patients don't want to be sold to, they want to be cared for.
And also it looks like we're desperate, and that forces people away. Whereas when you're financially free, you don't need that sale. It's amazing how many times you can say, that's okay, you don't want to come, no problem, I'll be here when you want me back. And that sort of power converts people. I think I've only had one person in 7 years not take care in the last 7 years, since I've been doing my systems and being financially free, because that power to say, oh, that's okay, no problem, if it's not for you, it's not for you, and we'll just give me a call if you need me. And then the amount of patients that turn around and go, hey, hold on a second, I don't want to get rid of me. it's quite amazing, really. And so that's why financially free is a powerful thing, because being financially free actually increases your wealth in another way. It makes you more free with patients, and that makes them more likely to accept you and to have what you have. It makes you free because you can spend more time with your family, doing the things that bring happiness, which is experiences. Without being financially free, you can't take, like I do, 3 months off the year to go around America and visit all the wonderful things there with the family. Being financially free just helps you out in so many different ways. And of course, I don't hide the fact that being financially free saved me and my children, because in 2016, my clinic manager, and who was my wife, suddenly died, and I had the 2 children. And that was a very difficult time, obviously, and a time that I don't wish on anybody, but it would have been worse, way worse, if I had to go back to work the next week, if I hadn't put all those things in place, from building up these ideas and being shown how to become financially free. If I had to go back to work, I wouldn't be able to spend the next 2 years healing the children and traveling the world and just trying to bring happiness back to their lives. And without that, I would have been at work, they would have been in childcare, and that ability of being financially free saved us. And we never know when that's going to happen. That could happen to you or your spouse or the clinic manager if it's not related to you tomorrow. And so starting this process as quickly as possible is very important. But first of all, we need to talk about what being financially free is. Financially free is not being rich and driving Ferraris. Being financially free means that you've got enough money coming in to cover the money that goes out. That's it. It's super simple. So say we're going to do easy numbers. Say you need $5,000 a month to live, and working at your clinic you make $6,000. You got a spare $1,000. If that's happening with you and you're only making that much, give me a call. We'll help each other out. But I'm just doing easy numbers. But if you can't work, you're minus $5,000. Now, there's a couple of ways to cover that minus $5,000. One is to have more money and put more money away. And so wealth is measured in amount of time you can not work. That's the correct way to measure wealth. So for instance, if you have $50,000 in the bank and you spend $5,000 a month on bills, then and you can't work, then you are 10 months wealthy, because in 10 months time your money is going to run out and you have to go back to work. So you're 10 months wealthy. There's a couple of ways to increase that. One is to put more money in. So if you now have $100,000 in the bank, you are 20 months wealthy, or decrease how much is going out. And so say now you still only got the $50,000 in your bank, but you've cut your bills down to $2,500 a month. Now you're still 20 months wealthy, even though you've got the same $50,000 in the bank. And they're two very important steps: increasing your savings and decreasing costs. Decreasing costs is surprisingly easy. And I'm going to give you a few steps for that later on. But there's a third way. And the third way of increasing wealth is passive income, or semi-passive income as I like to call it. First definition, active income is money that you work for. So when you work in your clinic treating patients, you are actively working to get income, to get money. That's active income. And the people who succeed in this life are the ones that can turn active income into passive income as quickly as possible. So passive income is income that works for you without you doing as much by a long way. And that's why I call it semi-passive, because a lot of people talk about passive income like from stocks or bonds and things like that. But unless you've traded stocks or bonds and foreign exchange, like I used to trade for people as a living, you don't realise that how much is involved in watching the markets. For instance, if you're investing in foreign exchange, you can lose a lot of money very quickly just because non-farm payroll came out. And you have to know all these wonderful things to do with those sort of things. So there's no such thing as passive income, but semi or lesser active income is very common, and that could be rentals, house rentals, land sales. It could be a whole bunch of different things. And we want to turn our active income into income that's generated with far less effort as quickly as possible, because that third way we're talking about, the way to increase our wealth, is to get passive income that covers the amount of money that we have going out. And so if, for instance, we take the $5,000 a month as the amount our bills come to, if we then have passive income that generates $5,000 a month, how many months wealthy are we if we have to stop work? In that instance, we're infinitely wealthy. We don't have to work at all, ever. And that's the state we want to get to. That doesn't mean you'll be buying flashy cars or big houses. I don't have flashy cars. Well, one of them's pretty okay. But I do have an RV, I have 2 cars. They're all paid off. Every single one of them is paid off in cash. So I don't owe anything. I'm not adding to that actual monthly bill. Same with land and houses. They're all paid off in cash because I'm not adding to that monthly bill, and therefore keeping my outgoings down and allowing me to be financially free for far less. And that's a couple of things that we're going to go through. So let's start with ways to make you more wealthy today. Well, the first one is put more money in the bank. We talked about that at the beginning. That's one of the 3 options, is to put more money in the bank. And it's amazing how much we spend on things. I'm not trying to cut down on life either. That's the important thing. And I'm not trying to make more time go away, because we want time to do things. That's why we're doing this. And so there's a few things that we can always improve on. And put more money in the bank is one of them. putting money in the bank is good, but putting money into a mortgage is better. So if you have a mortgage, it ranges between 4 and 8%, depending on where you are in the world, of interest you're paying. You'll be very hard pressed to find an investment that's not a high level investment, which is what we'll talk about later, that will give you that sort of return. So instead of looking for investments, sometimes it's better to look directly at what's going out first, because that works in two ways. It decreases your monthly outgoings and increases your ability to pay for more things. And we're trying to increase that gap. And so we want to put more of our money into our mortgage to pay off our bills or our credit cards. Credit cards can be 22% interest. You need to get rid of that quickly instead of looking for investments. So clearing debt is one of the biggest things we can do, because that gives us more money to spend or more money to pay off our debts. It's an ever-increasing circle. The more we have, the more we pay off. The more we have, the more we pay off. And that's a positive cycle, whereas debt's a negative cycle. And so we want to get out of that negative cycle. So if you have debt, the first thing is to start paying it off, and that gives you more money. Second thing is cut down on those expenses. And there's a very easy way to do that. I go through my bank online and click on direct debits in the UK or electronic payments in the US or subscriptions in PayPal. And I look at them and I go, do I really want that? Am I still going to that gym? And so we cut out the ones that we don't need or don't think we need. I'll give an example. I cancelled Netflix the other day based on a couple of things that I didn't like that they were doing. And I thought I'd miss it. I was like, oh man, I'm going to miss it. But I forgot that I already had Amazon Prime, which comes with full TV anyway. And so I've not missed it at all. And so cutting things out, you can always restart them later, but cutting out a vast majority of things is a good idea. But don't forget, don't cut out insurances and things like that, because they're there to help you in this time. Another important thing is to cover your bases with life insurance and key person insurance. These are vital things because like the situation I was in, without life insurance to give me that little boost to start off with, I would have had a delay in sorting out my affairs. And so having life insurance on key people, spouse, children, yourself, and managers, clinic managers, is a wise purchase for a very small amount. So life insurance and key person insurance. Again, key person insurance maintains the business income coming in if the key person, the head chiropractor, the manager, the associate, is taken out of the business. And that works very well. For about $30 to $50 a month, you can cover about $4,000 to £8,000 or dollars of income. And so step one is to pay off debt and cut down bills. And that sounds very boring, doesn't it? That's why we don't do it. But you'll be amazed how much you save. Say, for instance, you save $5,000 this year from cutting down on a few things, because $5,000 a year is only £400 or $400 a month, roughly. And you can save that monthly very easily by cutting out a few things and etc. Well, that $5,000 goes down to paying your mortgage, which would have cost 4%, 6%, 8% interest. That cuts your monthly payments down on your mortgage by $100 over the next couple of years. So now not only are you saving $5,000, you're saving $6,000, which then allows you to pay off more on your mortgage. And now your mortgage has gone down $300 a month. And now you're in a very positive cycle, because now you're paying off $8,000 or $7,000 a year off your mortgage. And you're going to pay that mortgage off a lot quicker, because that comes off the principal, not the interest. And therefore you're cutting a huge chunk out of your debt commitment and your monthly outgoings, and it makes you into that financially free area very quickly. So these are very positive things that I would look at before investments. Step two would be to increase passive income. Now, I have many different ways of looking at passive income, but we're going to deal with one that comes to most people's minds first, which is real estate. I will be honest, I only have 3 rentals in the UK anymore. The reason being is the UK market is not great for rentals in certain areas. And the reason being is there's more money to be made in America, where I'm currently living, and while I'm here I can make more money there because the rental return on investment is higher. But if I'm in the UK, you've got a lot of capital growth with rentals. So let's talk about capital growth and rental growth. Never, ever, ever buy for capital growth. I'll give you an example. I've been buying houses since before I was a chiropractor and for rental income. My first house that I rented out, I actually rented out during chiropractic university. And before I went to chiropractic university, I was making, I think it was 13 to 17,000 a year, working for the government. That was not very sustainable, but everyone was like, stay with your job, you're not going to make it through chiropractic university. But I didn't. I went and I rented out my house. My house brought me in 200 positive pounds a month, and I'll talk about positive in a second. But the capital growth was 100,000. So in the 5 years it took to get through chiropractic school, I was on the 5-year program, I made 20,000 a year, which is more than I would have made working. What if only I'd had 5 of those houses? That would have been amazing, wouldn't it? And I'd have made 100,000 a year while studying. And so I wish I had bought 5, but I hadn't at the time. I bought more later. And so capital growth is great and is amazing, but that should only be bought at the bottom of a cycle, meaning when there's been a crash. And they don't happen very often. Every 7 to 10 years a crash happens. We want to buy when everyone's selling. And so when everything crashes, that's when we want to buy. And then we can buy for a little bit of capital growth then. But every time we buy a house, it has to make sense with rental growth. So when we look at the numbers, we want the house to make sense without it making any capital growth at all. So without the house going up in price at all, even losing money. And what I mean by that is, if a house rents out for $1,000 a month and the mortgage we pay is $500 a month, we are 500 positive pounds or dollars ahead. That is a house you can buy. You can buy that every week because 500 positive is fantastic. I'll contrast that with a couple of my patients that were buying during the top of the market when everything was going to go bust around 2007, 2008. And nobody knew that. People predicted it, but nobody knew it. And I'd certainly stopped buying way before then on that cycle. I bought again when it crashed. That's because I only bought houses that make rental sense. And they bought based on capital growth. So they bought a house at the highest price. They were losing $100 a month, or £100 a month actually, they were in the UK. And hoping to make money on the outcome. And they sold the houses at a loss because they were losing 500, they bought 5 houses or whatever it was, and they were losing 500 a month paying for these houses for somebody else to live in, then the repairs and all those different things. And so they were losing big time. And that's because it didn't make rental sense and rental growth. And so never ever buy a house based on capital growth. It can be the hottest market in the world. Do not buy a house based on capital growth. Don't expect the house price to go up. Expect it to go down, and you're only going to make money off the rental. And that's what we want anyway. We want passive income to give us money every month. Because if I have 10 of those houses giving me 500 a month, then I've got my 5,000 that we started talking about at the beginning, that gives us the money that we need to be financially free. We've got 5,000 coming in, we've got 5,000 going out. I don't need to work anymore. I'm free. And then everything I do at the chiropractic clinic is a bonus. And I managed to achieve that quite early, as most chiropractors can, because we have a high income. And if you don't have a high income, give me a call and we'll work on that straight away. But we have a high income, and so when we cut those bills down, when we put more into our mortgage, we pay off those things so quick that the positive income starts coming in. Now, advanced strategies. Many times I've bought houses to pay off my mortgage, and that seems counterintuitive to the pay off debt first. But we're talking about advanced strategies here, and sometimes in advanced strategies it makes more sense to buy a house that gives you more money to pay more money off your mortgage. For instance, I could put 500 a month into my mortgage and that will pay off quicker, and that'd be great. But if I'm getting 500 a month from a house that I'm going to buy with that money I would have put 500 away with, and that house gives me 500 a month, then I'm better putting that money into that house so that that continually pays me 500 to pay off my mortgage every month. And that's a very positive cycle. Somebody else is paying my mortgage. So in those instances, it can make more sense to buy a house that gives you more income that pays off your house. But that's an advanced strategy for someone that's already heading towards financial freedom. And again, I like to reiterate, I'm not a financial advisor, I'm a guide, and you have to make your own financial decisions based upon yourself. I can only show you the possibilities. And so many times like for instance, I have a house at the moment that I'm living in that I actually pay a mortgage on, even though I could actually pay the mortgage off. And the reason is because my other investments, my other houses are paying this mortgage, and I'm saving up to get a different house and buy that outright with cash. And so tying my money up here is not clever for me. And so this mortgage is, I think, $2,600 a month. And all my other houses more than pay for that. And so I'm happy for them to just somebody else keeps paying my mortgage. I live mortgage free in effect, because somebody else in a different country, actually someone in this country as well, is paying my mortgage. And so that's vitally important for me to be able to do that. And that's a good option for some people, but that's a more advanced option. Which leads me to my advertisement, sponsored by Impact Inc. We're very grateful for Impact Inc. They pay for this podcast every month without fail, and we're so grateful for them. And they give you guys a great deal all the time. And they've done an amazing deal for you. This is not related to their instruments in any way. They make the Arthostim and Vibracus, two amazing instruments that I've used way before I was employed by them to do this podcast. And they're doing something out of the kindness of their heart. They're subsidizing each and every one of you that read this podcast to be able to get my financially free course. It's a 12-month course that covers everything on how to become financially free. And the goal is, if you have enough income coming in from your chiropractic clinic, to be financially free by the end of the year. And that's a goal that everyone can achieve given the right motivation and guidance. And usually I charge $200 a month for that, but they're doing it at $99 a month for you. They're paying the $100. I still get that. They're paying $100 for each of you to become on that course and do the things necessary to become financially free, to free yourself from your healthcare. And if you take them up that offer, I fully suggest you buy an Arthostim and Vibracus, or one for each room like I used to have, as a thank you, because they're helping all these chiropractors become financially free without any recourse or anything on their part. And this course is amazing because it covers everything from the basics of how to become financially free, what is wealth, how it's generated, to how to implement it. And it's great having the knowledge, but implementing it is an important part. And they're also discounting the coaching package. The coaching package is where I talk you through the course and look at every deal and prospective financial decision you make, and see if I think it makes sense, and what changes you can make to make it work for you. And that usually costs $199 on top of the course every month. But with you, they've discounted both for no gain of their own to $199 for both the course and the coaching package. And that can be found at www.instantchiro.com/mentor, and then click on courses to sign up for the courses and the coaching there. So that's an offer directly from them, which I think just shows the commitment that they have to chiropractors in general, and not just in sales. And again, we're very grateful for Impact Inc. And now, back to the podcast. So being financially free, we need to increase our passive income. So I call it semi-passive because I do a lot of land sales, a lot of owner-carry land sales at the moment. And I like that better than rentals at the moment. Owner-carry land sales are where I buy a piece of land, usually relatively cheaply, and then I offer it to people that don't have financial means to be able to buy it monthly at an inflated price and with interest, to allow them to be able to do it. And it gives me a monthly return, that passive income, based off of something that they own, so I'm no longer responsible for it. So it's like the benefits of renting without renting. And to give you an idea, I'll buy a piece of land for $6,000, sell it for $12,000 with 8% interest, and up to 25 years.
That can get me about $38,000 from just $4,000 invested.
So that's a huge return on investment. And it's also a great land bank. When you're financially free, we forget about things that are vitally important, like protecting our finances. For instance, many of my patients had places in Portugal. I nearly bought a place in Portugal during the recession, and they put a lot of money out into the banks in Portugal, and Portugal needed money, and so it said, if you've got 100,000 in the bank, I'm going to take 50,000 of it. I can't remember the exact figures. And a couple of my patients got caught in that, even though it was only meant to be for Portuguese nationals. And the government just took the money. And governments can do that. So I'm a big fan of hiding money in what's called land banks. And land banks is where you put money into land, and that land stays there and appreciates or doesn't appreciate. And one of the benefits of this is hyperinflation. No one expects hyperinflation to happen, even though it's happened in Germany, Brazil, various other places. If we take the Germany example, for instance, millionaires were turned into having $1 million and being able to buy houses, 1 million marks, we should say, or the equivalent of $1 million, be able to buy houses as they wanted, to be able to buy a loaf of bread, because the inflation made the currency worthless. And so the only thing that occurred was people that had houses were safe, or land, because that increased the price. If it cost you 10,000 for a piece of land, then 10,000 suddenly needed to be $1 million because the hyperinflation. The land was worth $1 million. It changed, whereas the money itself in banks doesn't change. And so I suggest anybody who has a large amount of money to buy educated land. Educated land is small pieces elsewhere. And the reason I call it educated land is because we can all buy nice land, but then we're buying into a high market. Whereas less nice land, cheaper land, always goes up in price. I'll give an example. During the recession, I had many properties go up in value because I didn't buy big houses, because they didn't make rental sense. I bought tiny houses, and when you have a recession, everyone has to move from the big houses to the small houses. So interestingly, the tiny houses went up in price during the housing crisis because they had more room to move. 10% increase on an 80,000 house is just 8. A 10% increase on a 700,000 is 70,000. And that is just a huge increase. You can't make that sometimes, especially not in a crash. And the demand has gone from the higher end to the lower end. So I always buy small pieces of land, which spreads my risk, and I try and buy them in Wyoming corporations. And this goes into more detail in the course, of course, but Wyoming corporations allow you to be anonymous. And if patients or the government or anyone comes looking for your land bank where you're hiding your money, you pay your taxes, of course, pay your taxes, don't be dumb. But if they come looking for your money to take it away in a lawsuit, a spurious lawsuit or anything, it's not there because it's in land that's not even registered under your name. It's just controlled by you, and they're not able to locate that. And so I recommend land. I always have land for sale. If you go to www.bestlandonearth.com/invest, you'll find parcels of land that I've got that I've never even visited, that are cheap, that I sell to people cheaply, and for them to do this exact thing. It's very important to be able to have a land bank or a house bank, a property bank would be a better word, to be able to hide and keep your money and hedge it against inflation and hedge it against wild market forces. Having something physical that is worth something inherently is far better than having a concept of paper or numbers in a bank, because they can disappear so very quickly. A good book to scare you into buying land or property would be The Creature from Jekyll Island, which shows the worth of American currency is zero. It's just a belief. And so that's a vast advanced concept that we get into more in the courses and things, but that's an important thing to remember. And that can give you a passive income through selling it as owner carry, and you'll make far more money there than you will with rentals. So that's another thing. And of course we have intellectual properties and various other things that you can buy or create that allow you to get that financial freedom very quickly. For instance, I just sold 2 pieces of land this week. One piece I bought for $4,000 and I'm selling it for $23,000 through the various means that I show you in my course. And I'm also doing that on owner carry for 25 years at 8.5%, and that's bringing in a lot of money anyway. It's about 100,000 over the next 25 years, and it's bringing in $500 a month for me. So 4,000 has given me 500 a month for 25 years. And if we go back to that original thing that we say we need 5,000 a month to cover our bills, hypothetically, then I just need 10 of those. So I need 40,000 to be financially free. How many of you could generate 40,000, have 40,000 in the bank, or could borrow 40,000 like that? Pretty much most of you. And I'm not saying do that. I'm not saying borrow money to become financially free. That's a more advanced strategy. I'd rather coach you through that. But it just shows you the options are there. Now, is land usually that cheap? No. I have land available from 3,000 though, and you can buy land online for less than that. But there's various steps you need to take into consideration. So passive income, generating that financial freedom, is vital to allow you to be able to deliver your best healthcare, because you'll do your best adjusting when you're not worried about the repercussions. You'll do your best selling because you're not selling. Nobody wants to sell. No one wants to be sold to. And you'll do your best life because you're no longer tied to work. If you look at a couple of interviews back, I was interviewing Peter Johns, who consistently takes time off. And Peter did that at expense of his finances because he knew that experiences were worth more. But how much easier would it be to be able to take those breaks like I do? I've not worked for 2 years previous to just starting work recently because I was able to. I'm starting work because I want to. And that is a vital thing to be able to do as a chiropractor, and a vital thing for everybody who's a family member or has friends or has a hobby. We can always make more money, but we can't make more time. And I think that's the basis of being financially free. And that's why on the 4th of July, Happy Treason Day, we are celebrating that. We learned at the beginning about the person who I am going to interview as a leader in the field who couldn't take that risk, and he'd made the right decision because of finances. And we learned how we could generate those finances and become completely wealthy. We learned that wealth is not an amount in a bank, it is the amount of months that you can stop working and still live. And that can be affected by increasing the amount in the bank, decreasing our monthly expenses, or the third option, which is infinite wealth, which is creating passive income that equates to that amount that we need. So to recap, if you have 50,000 in the bank and you have 5,000 a month expenses, then you are 10 months wealthy. You can make that better by doubling the amount of money in the bank to 100,000. Now you're 20 months wealthy. Or keeping the original 50,000 and decreasing your monthly expenses and to 2,500, and that'll make you 20 months wealthy as well. Or you can take the third option, which is to increase your passive income to 5,000. And now you are infinitely wealthy and you are free to work or not work at will. And that is where I want you all to get to. And I really hope that you take that time to make those changes so that you can have more experience in life, which is happiness, which is what you're after. You're not after more money, you're after more experiences and happiness. And I love you all above, down and inside out. I'll see you soon.